Thanks everyone for tuning in. I'm so excited to share this inspiring story and interview I did with Kevin Coates. Kevin is a life coach, a mentor, a student, a writer, a father, and a leader. Kevin grew up against tough odds and should have been another teen that surrendered to the pressure of being on the streets and selling drugs. Kevin shares his personal story with the internal battle he won by deciding to be a leader instead of a follower. He talks about the pressures from the environment he grew up in and the heartbreaking experience of losing family members and friends to drugs and murder. Throughout these major life challenges and traumas, Kevin made the decision to lead his own life and not be a follower, by changing his thoughts and his attitude towards his life even during the most challenging times. As I follow my passion and purpose in helping people free themselves from their inner critic, I've been connecting with some pretty amazing people and have some amazing stories on how they have shifted their lives by changing their mind and attitude to create their own destiny. From the day I met Kevin, I have been truly inspired by him and how he chooses to live his life. And one thing we have in common is having a passion to inspire others to go inward to heal and change their reality by changing their mind and beliefs and attitudes towards their lives. In the interview, Kevin and I talk about his story and the theme that making true change starts on the inside and how to overcome being stuck in your comfort zone and trusting that the more you lean into the unknown and trust the unknown, life starts to flow and support you. So please tune in, and if you like this story, we would be grateful if you share it with your friends and family. Enjoy. Okay, we are live. Yay! Well, cool. Well, hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for taking time to do this interview today. I'm so excited to be sharing your story, and I'm just excited because I really was inspired by your story, and I feel like it's going to help a lot of other people. So thanks for taking time to connect and be with me today, and I love that we're doing it via Skype. We're testing out the whole Skype thing and video and seeing how this works for us. So one of the things I'm passionate about is helping people, helping inspire people to change their minds and their attitudes in life to kind of help create the reality that they want. And so when thinking back to when we met and just kind of all the wonderful things I've heard about you and your story, it just really has inspired me. And as I go along this journey, interviewing people and wanting to share people's stories, you were someone definitely on my list that I really wanted to be able to connect with and help share your story to inspire people. So I'm excited for today. So I thought we could start with, just how we met, which was, it was like a year ago in March.
Yeah, a year ago, yeah.
We were both going through IPEC, which is Professional Excellence in Coaching. It's a coaching program. And so I remember walking in and I was like, oh gosh, it's like the first day, like, where do you sit? You don't have any friends. You're like, where do I go? And so I remember kind of migrating up towards the front, and I like sat down, and then I could hear you talking, and I was starting to like listen to your story, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, who is this guy? Like, what is he talking about? And then you had started talking about how you're turning your story into a book. And so I remember I kind of like turned around and I was like, I got to talk to these people and hear what they were talking about. So that's kind of my first memory of you.
For sure. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm honored just for the simple fact that, you want to take the time to help me get the story out there. And hopefully between you and myself, we can, inspire others and let them know that anything is possible. Just got to look within. And dating back to a year ago, same thing. I didn't know anyone, didn't know what to expect. Within our program, one thing that was very clear in the very beginning was we could be ourselves. And there was a lot of people with like mindsets, and that was there to really support one another. So thank you. You have an interesting story as well. So hopefully we can reverse this and maybe interview you one day so you can share your story, because it's very impactful as well. So thank you.
Yeah, I would love that. I really do believe, I think we were talking about this. It's kind of a gift if you can kind of go through some hard situations in life and come out on the other side with a positive attitude. I think it's almost like your gift and like duty to share how you got through that story to help inspire others. So so kudos to us for being able to share our stories. Let's see, where should we start? And I remember also going through something, one of my favorite things about Kevin too when he coaches. So we were going through all of our coaching classes, you get coached by your peers. And so I remember getting paired with Kevin, and he was so funny. Like right away, he asks you these upfront questions, and it just gets like straight to the point. There's no like, sugarcoating anything. Kevin just kind of asks you like, why are you doing that? And you're like, oh, I don't know. And so it's like, you can't even like lie if you don't want to. Like he really has a special way of like connecting with you and getting to the root. So I remember that was one of my favorite things too about you. You just like, you see the person and you meet them where they're at, and you're just like, you ask them that question and it's like, whoa, that was like a powerful question. Like, I don't know why I do that. So that's one thing I wanted to point out. So.
Well, thanks. Yeah. I've had to ask myself those questions. Not too often do we really look within and really, get to the root of why we do what we do. And so, I wouldn't be asking those types of questions after getting to knowing you if I haven't done it myself. Definitely don't want to be a hypocrite, don't want to assume, don't want to judge you or anything like that. So whatever you present to me, it just kind of comes naturally. And I'm genuinely curious as to know why you do what you do, because someone may benefit it, and even I may benefit from it as well. So I love learning about people. Yeah.
Well said. Well, cool. Well, so why don't you get started? I know you're writing a book, and maybe you can talk about that in a little bit, but I just would love for you to just share whatever you're comfortable with about your story that would really help inspire people.
Yeah. So, my story, my life, it was full of, alcohol. It was full of drugs. It was full of violence. And when I talk of violence and drugs, I'll start with the drug piece. All the way from people using in my family, friends, and other relatives as well, and all the way to, distributing it, so friends and family, really selling, hustling, doing the things that are done, I guess, in the hood or the inner cities and everywhere else. But for me, I've never smoked a drink a day in my life, and, nor do I judge anyone for doing what they do. But I was very troubled as a youth. I was lost, being around so many people that use these coping mechanisms the way they did. They became severe addictions, and it started to really change their demeanor and their personalities as well. And it ultimately filtered out and got to me. And so even though I had basketball as it was kind of my out, internally, I still, I just didn't have enough love. I didn't have enough, people in my corner to say, hey, keep doing what you're doing. And not only tell me, but they weren't really showing me what it looked like. So as we all know, actions are louder than words, and so for me, it was tough. People would say certain things, and, as a kid, I'm a sponge. I soak it all in. And it really brought up some disturbing things for me, and some really, really bad behaviors on my part.
Yeah, I can imagine. So where did you grow up? Tell us where you grew up, where you were in that environment.
Yeah. So I grew up in Annapolis, Maryland, small city, about 30 minutes from Baltimore, 30 minutes from D.C. And it's funny because every time I tell someone, hey, I'm from Annapolis, they're like, they have hoods in Annapolis, they have, they have crime. And, within our culture, yes, there's a lot of crime. It's not just known for the Naval Academy, which is a great place. But yeah, I grew up in a small city, and one way in, one way out. And again, every day of my life was alcohol, drugs, or some type of violence. And so I'm grateful for the experience overall. I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so it sounds like, the environment that you grew up in was kind of harsh. You were talking about how you didn't have like the best role models or anybody to kind of teach you or lead you of where to go and what to do. So what did you do if you didn't have the best role models? What did you do? How did you kind of overcome that environment? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great question. So, as all of these things are unraveling and, people are dying and, my parents were very loving and caring. And I later on in life realized that they did the best they could with the resources and the learnings and their own experiences. And so that's why I was able to forgive. But again, basketball, so every day I'm in the hood or I'm sitting on the step. But when I had practice or when I had a game, that was my outlet. That was my time to get away and not be in that environment. And, I guess I had somewhat of a skill because it went a little bit further than just, little league. But that was my escape. And then another one that actually gets rightfully so, it gets criticized nowadays. I was a big video gamer. I played video games a lot, and a lot of the times it kept me out of the streets and off, off the block or off the corner. And a lot of my family, we just play video games. We will play from sun up to sundown, 15 straight hours, of just video gaming. And those are just small outlets, that really kept me from being outside in that environment. And it was a small piece, but I would say it really played a big part in, just kind of altering my mindset and not really allowing me to get too deep into, my environment, for sure.
Okay. So yeah, I was just thinking about that. So, if everyone around you is kind of partaking in drugs or violence or whatever else, like, so it sounds like maybe basketball and maybe video games is kind of what kept you inside or just kept you from following the rest of the herd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. At the root of it, I realized too that I'm just not that follower. I didn't need to fit in. My self-esteem, my self-worth was not predicated on someone else's like of me or, if they thought I was amazing or if they hated me. Even though I had my own internal battles, overall, I didn't do things for other people. And I think that's really where the selfishness side of me worked in my favor, was that, I didn't have to fit in. I didn't have to take a sip. I didn't have to I sat in cycles of, family and friends, smoking weed, and they pass it right around me. And, you have people ask, hey, you want to take a hit or whatnot? And you say no. After you keep saying no, they'll realize that you just don't really indulge in, that type of activity. And I would say the biggest learning too is that those who really cared about me, they didn't treat me any different because I didn't smoke or I did not drink. We were still cool, we were still friends. And that's when I realized who was really there beyond just, superficial presence of smoking weed or anything like that. They really just showed me love and respect. And I appreciate, my friends from back east and what they allowed me to be me.
Yeah.
And it was very easy to just, sit there and smoke or go out and have a bunch of drinks, and hopefully we can, get some numbers and, feel better about ourselves for the amount of numbers we got. I mean, we can go on, but, I wasn't a follower. And at the root of it, I'm really just a leader, and I appreciate that. And I would recommend that for a lot of other people out there. Figure out if you're a follower or a leader, and, make that decision and stick with it. And if you're a follower, then accept it. And if you want to be a leader, you can definitely aspire and learn the tools and skills to become a leader of your life, more importantly.
Yeah. I love how you say that, like, just make a decision. Do you want to be a follower or do you want to be a leader? And I think for some people, it might be easier than others to make that decision. But, choosing to follow your own self rather than being a follower of others, but choosing yourself to be your own leader, you were able to kind of make your own decisions with your life. Granted, versus if you just kind of followed what everyone else was doing, you might end up, being someone who does drugs and stuck in violence and all those other things.
For sure.
So what could you tell somebody that would maybe help them figure that out? Like, was there a moment in your life where you're like, I'm a leader, or was it just a natural thing that you're like, nope, I'm doing something different?
So in the environment that, I come from, everybody's doing what they can to survive, everything they can with what they know, what they've been taught, to make ends meet, to support a family. And there's various ways you can, obtain money, and it could be robbing people. It could be, stealing from a grocery store, stealing from your job. Could be multiple ways, where someone can obtain the finances and means to support themselves and their family. For me, it was very simple. Most of the decisions that my friends or even friends of friends, the decisions that they were making ultimately led to them being either buried, in the ground, or being, in jail, incarcerated. And for me, I had to really look within and say, okay, well, if I sell drugs, then yeah, it's a quick turnaround. I can make a lot of money. But the thing about it is I'm always looking over my shoulder, and it always, there's a high percentage of the time that it comes to an end. And so, of course, I don't want to sell drugs. Sometimes, people have to do that. Sometimes they stay in it longer than they should. And I would never recommend or advise anyone to do anything like that. But from where I come from, sometimes you have to do what you have to do. Um, and on the flip side, hold on, I want to go back and speak more into that.
Yeah.
You have to really pay attention not only to your behaviors, but to those around you, your group of friends. And again, for the decisions that my friends or family of friends or my environment, the things that people were doing, uh, it was leading to some very unfortunate results. And I had to really interpret that. Do I want those results? And I knew what was going to yield those results. I could rob somebody, I could steal. I'm either going to get put in jail or I'm going to die. And I had to learn. So one of the first things that really stuck out to me was I had to really pay attention and learn from others' experiences, not only mine, because I did, I had some bad moments that a lot of people that know me don't really know about. But you have to first look at your circle of friends and learn from their experiences. And, if you have friends who are indulging in robbing, stealing, or, anything of that nature, most of the time it's not going to end well. And so what may be common sense or logical to me, understand it's not the same for everyone else. And that's okay. But I had to really look around me and say, wow, do I really want this? Do I want to go out and drink my life away or drink my problems away, knowing that when I sober up, they're going to be there when I wake up with a headache, and so it took a lot of time to realize that. And that's one of the biggest things for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Just being conscious of your environment and who you're spending your time with and who you're surrounding yourself with really makes a really big impact on your life. And so just like you said, just even taking the time to observe like who you were with and like what was happening to them in their lives and asking yourself, is this where I want to go? Is this where I want to end up and be? I think it's so important for people too, because I think we get wrapped up in just our environments and we think we have to be a certain way or do things a certain way. But it really might not serve us and it might not be good for us overall. So like you said, like learning how to make that decision, do I want to be a follower or a leader, decide what's good and true for you, and stick with that.
Yeah, and I wanted to add that by no means am I saying that my friends or family or the people where I come from are bad people. Like I said, they're doing what they can with what they know.
Right.
And I'm not trying to pass any judgment. I just had to figure out what do I want for myself. And, unfortunately, their experiences are what I had to learn from. And not even just theirs, my parents, my close relatives. I love all my friends and all the people that I've interacted with back home. But, you have to be selfish in your life in many ways without compromising and hurting others, to make sure that you're living a fulfilled life. And, for me, I had to really become selfish and say, no, I don't want to do that. I'm not judging you. I'm not saying you're a bad person. I just have to, take my energy elsewhere and focus on, developing or, really developing my psyche. That was a big part. My mindset was so distorted. I mean, it was very distorted. It was very hard to stay positive, very hard. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I love how you say, like, choosing to be selfish, but it's almost in a good way. It's like taking care of yourself and doing what's right for you. I think a lot of people get really wrapped into, again, it's a whole, do you want to be a leader or do you want to be a follower? Like a lot of times society makes you feel like you have to be a certain way. And if you're not, that you're not worth anything. So a lot of times people abandon themselves and they don't take time to tap into what's right for me, and like you said, you weren't judging anybody, but you knew it wasn't right for you and you wanted to do something different, and having that strength to just stay with that. And even I'm so inspired by you because your environment was really heavy. And then like you said, your mind was kind of distorted, it was negative because you were in this negative environment. You were still able to step outside of that and not let the negativity like drag you down. You still were like, nope, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to be something different. So when do you think you were able to kind of free yourself from that environment? Like what was kind of, after you kind of were making the decision, like, I'm not going to end up like these people have, or like, I want a different life. Like what got you out of that, or what did you do?
I would say my late teenage years, coming out of high school, I went to a junior college, Anne Arundel Community College. It wasn't known for basketball. It wasn't really known for sports. A very well sought after academic school. And, I had a lot of people, I had various people say, oh, well, don't go there. You can't go to the NBA, and, they were showing love. They wanted me to do, furthermore, more things, I should say. But I would say my later teenage years, going into my 20s, I had a very, very unfortunate thing happen to my family and myself. We were deeply impacted, among other murders. A close relative and a dear friend of mine who we video game from when we were early teenagers up until, he was murdered. And Terrence, a.k.a. Turtle, was taken away from my family and friends. And that was my first year in my junior college days playing basketball. He was the first and only person to show up at, my first collegiate basketball game. We were very close, and he was gunned down in a double homicide, and, very kind person. And I honestly didn't think he had a lot of development. He was caught up in the environment and the friends, but, that was a time that really, I had a lot of the people murdered, friends and things like that, but that was really close to home. We go through losing people through ailments and, unfortunate things like that, especially if it's an older relative. But when you get a call at 5 a.m. and, your best friend or someone who's very close to you has been taken away in with such a malicious act, that really, that's very painful. It's tough to really deal with that initially. But that gave me a lot of perspective. I had another relative that, committed suicide. And till this day, we don't really know why. And he was 19, a very kind soul, a great person. And wish we could have done more to get into his mind and figure out, what was going on that he couldn't tell us, that he, felt the need to, whether he was playing with a gun or whatever it was, to take his own life. But again, a lot of people around me, their experiences really opened my eyes. And again, I had basketball. It was my outlet. And so I had to really think, okay, I have an outlet, I have an opportunity here. And on this end, hanging out, partying, drinking, smoking, trying to get laid, trying to do it all, trying to be somebody that I'm really not meant to be, or that's just not my forte, or not really within my character. I didn't want to do that. And so my late teenage years, going into college, things start to really settle in. The human mind and brain, it develops,
Right.
So that was a time.
Yeah. Yeah, it must have been tough. Like you said, it was somebody in your life that was there to support you, and then to see what happened to him. Yeah, like you said, it's just another eye-opening event. And sometimes it takes big events like that, like losing a loved one, or, especially in that tragic way, to really kind of just, like, it was almost like it validated your decision to be your own leader and follow your own
For sure.
path.
Definitely. Yeah.
Like, it gave you even more validation to keep going.
Yeah. It did. It did. I'll tell you a story, Teresa, and a lot of people don't know this. Only those who got close to really knowing me know these stories, and some won't even believe it actually happened. But, 3 months earlier, before I lost my cousin, he actually put a gun to my head. And, I was outside, and we were just sitting outside like we normally do. And it was a friend's birthday party, and he was drunk. I mean, he was really, he was feeling good. And he was actually high off of multiple, drugs that he had experimented with. And, again, just hanging out with the homies. And, he walks up to me, and I knew from that moment when I saw in his eyes how red they were, he just wasn't the same person. And, some of what he told me, and again, a lot of people don't know this, but he told me, he goes, I want you to take care of your mother, and I want you to get out of here. And I want you to keep doing what you're doing. And he said, let me take over these streets, which, of course, I didn't agree with. He didn't need it to take over the streets, but for whatever reason, that's what he believed in. And he said, you take care of your mother, you get her out of here. And right before he said all this, he says my name 3 times, and then he yells, "Cuz, cuz, cuz," and he puts a 22 right at my temple. And I didn't know. I turned around to the right, and I'm looking down the barrel of a gun. And, even though it's a crazy, scary experience, I didn't think he would shoot me, but he was so disoriented, he really didn't know what was going on. All he knew for sure is that he wanted to tell me to keep it moving. This is not a place for you. This is not where you're destined to be for the rest of your life. And not with the expense of his own life. I wish I could have brought him with me to share these moments, just like, many other moments. But, when I think back to it, even in such a crazy, experience, there was a positive message. And it was continue to do what you're doing. And so I'll never forget that. And the next day, I asked him about it. We were on the basketball court, and he didn't remember it. And, he told me he loved me. He would never shoot me. And I didn't think he would ever shoot me. But, when people are on the influence of, different things, their minds are not in the right places. And freak accidents happen. And I'm fortunate that that didn't happen to me. But, he was murdered 3 months after that. And
Wow.
I never hold any grudges towards him or anything. But he was really just trying to tell me, hey, you got something special within you, something going on. Just keep doing what you're doing. And so I'll never forget that message.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you definitely will never forget something like that. But it's interesting, like you said, it was like a very scary event, but somehow this like divine message came through to like,
for sure.
Just be like, hey, like, wake up, dude, like, get out of here. Like, you don't need to be here. Like, keep moving. So, wow, it's really another event to kind of just keep you moving. Wow.
For sure. Thank you.
Well, I just inspired by you that you're able to take these experiences that happened and like still come out on the positive side of them and see the positive message, which is so important, right? When all this stuff happens, it's like learning to stay positive, learning to do what feels good for you and continue down that path that's right for you, regardless of what anyone's telling you or where you're at or your environment. So I think that's just so helpful. So, so after you kind of gone through, so you went through college and then I forget, you were talking about how you kind of came out to Colorado, and I know you were doing some mentoring options for kids too. Tell me a little bit more about how you got there.
Yeah, so again, I made that decision. He was murdered. I had another year to play basketball at my junior college. And thank you to Thomas Smith, Coach Tom. He believed in me, gave me an opportunity. Great guy. Forever grateful for him and that experience he helped me create. And so what happened was, I wasn't the best basketball player in the world. I guess I had some skill in many's eyes. And one day, Coach Tom calls me and he says, hey, Colorado State, University of Pueblo. And I'm like, Pueblo? Where's Pueblo? And he's like, it's Colorado. I said, okay, you did say Colorado. Okay. And they want to bring me out for a visit. And I said, sure. I didn't have many visits. And I didn't know what a visit consisted of. I didn't know much of anything. And I fly out for this visit, and I meet another group of great guys who wanted to give me an opportunity. And, I just asked 3 things. I said, hey, are you going to pay for my school, give me a place to lay my head, and, help me eat? They said yes. I said, well, I'm all yours. I'll be there. And so I ended up leaving Maryland after I got my associate's degree, and I took a chance, and I really believe it was a life or death decision, because I knew if I stayed in that environment, what was going to be presented. Even if I stayed in the house and studied forever, I walk out the door, things happen, So I decided to go to Colorado State, and when I went there, I decided to, major in business management, and eventually, towards the end of my career playing basketball for them for 2 years, I was asked to become an alcohol and other drug prevention coordinator. I was an assistant to the director, and they wanted me to share my stories, and we collected a lot of data. And in the midst of it, they asked me to work with this $30,000 grant, which was like a peer mentor program that the first year they didn't do anything with it, but the second and third year were the last 2 years they had to do something with this money. And so here I am out of the hood. They give me a big old binder, and it has all this information in it, and it has all this criteria because, you know, that's how grants work. And they say, I want you to formulate a group or formulate something to help combat with this alcohol and drug stuff on campus and just educating the students and make healthy and wiser decisions. And so I developed a group at the time named SOUL, which was Seeking Ourselves to Unite Leaders. And the idea behind it was for every soul that we impacted or that we encountered, we would learn that much more about ourselves. And so, you know, Paul, John, you know, it was about 9 of us, a lot of great students. They were sorority leaders, fraternity presidents. Paul ended up doing a little bit in the NFL, you know, just a lot of leaders on campus that people looked up to. And I'm fortunate because they actually decided to join this group and be a positive impact to the community. And within that grant, we had a certification to become peer mentors. And so I was honored and asked to I got certified, and then I actually taught and certified these other leaders of the university. And, you know, it was just an amazing experience. And before I know it, I'm mentoring and meeting with all these people and all these students and impacting all their lives, and very fulfilling. You know, I had my story to tell, but people had their own stories to tell. And so just that support and love that we were able to share with one another really, it really inspired and transformed a lot of lives. I can tell you a story, and I don't think I've even told you this one, but my girlfriend, who's a nurse, she had a young lady as her patient who was on suicide watch. And the young girl mentioned that she was not able to fully go through with killing herself because she had a mentor from my group SOUL.
Wow.
Now, I didn't even know who this young lady was, but she told my lady that this girl that she was working with helped her, you know, to the point where she couldn't fully take her own life. But just this, you know, this energy and this soul that was really helping her out really impacted her to where she, you know, she couldn't really follow through with, you know, taking her own life. And so I didn't know that this group would reach as many people as it did, but very grateful for it. And that's kind of how that started. And I became a certified peer mentor at that point. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I can't imagine, did you have like moments of when you got to join and be a part of that group and start helping others, did you have moments of like, wow, like how did I get here? Like I can't, you know, like talking from like where you came from to all of a sudden you're kind of in your purpose, like where you're supporting others, you're sharing your story, but you're also learning from their stories. Like,
yeah,
that must have felt really cool to get to that space.
You know, it's funny you asked that. One of the most important times of my life and forgiving and accepting, you know, all that I have been through, all that I had done, came in college when I would sit in front of a mirror and I would cry different nights. You know, a lot of people, I would cry to myself and I would ask, how did I get here? You know, why am I here? You know, I should be dead. I should be in prison. You know, I'm uneducated. Wow. You know, I've had people tell me I couldn't read. I've had an instructor say, hey, I'm going to fail you. They pushed you through high school. And I had to take a 5-hour reading course every Saturday to get my reading and comprehension to a level that would meet the college requirements. And I did in college. I got that energy out, and I really it was just happening. You know, I wasn't afraid to cry and, you know, and share that emotion with myself, you know, and acknowledge that, hey, you're upset, you're sad. And yeah, I asked myself a lot, you know, why am I here? You know, wow. And after a while, the message changed, and I had a few people that said, you're supposed to be here because you're going to impact other lives. And, you know, so I had to tailor that message to yeah, I'm supposed to be here. This is what's destined to be. So,
wow.
Yeah, they asked that.
Wow. So it's almost like it was like kind of unreal that you were in this space and you almost didn't feel like you should be there.
Yeah, it's like survivor's guilt, right? I was, you know, I had a lot of my buddies back home, they're great people, you know, they just they had their own story, you know, they had their own upbringing, even though we lived close to each other, you know, some didn't have their fathers and some fathers were murdered and some were on drugs and things like that. And, you know, just various things. And, you know, I happened to be one that decided to change the way I thought and honestly take a risk and be uncomfortable and take a chance. And, you know, I'm grateful. It worked out. I didn't get here alone by far, you know, and honestly, every day is still work in progress. You know, I'm not perfect, you know, just like the next person, but I did ask myself many times, why am I here? And I'm here, and so
Yeah.
I'm enjoying the ride, and it's been great so far.
So, what do you think? I know you said you maybe had a few friends or maybe teachers or coaches that kind of said, no, you're supposed to be here.
Hmm.
When do you think you finally let go of that, maybe that voice of the inner critic? I like to use inner critic. It's another thing I try to help people overcome, is just like
Yeah.
that negative voice inside that makes us think that we're not good enough or we're worthy enough. What you said, that's what the voice used to say, and then over time you got used to,
Hmm.
I am supposed to be here. What helped you with that, do you think?
So as I was getting close to graduating, my basketball career was pretty much over at CSU Pueblo, and I had to get ready for the next chapter, right? Like many college students. What's next? The real world. And granted, I had already been living parts of the real world, paying bills and all that, but this world that was coming was real. I'm a 22, 21-year-old man, and I had to go back for a semester of college to finish my degree. And after that, it's getting a job and using that degree, that you worked so hard for. And that was really like the turning point where I had to really take a deep look within and work on, okay, you're about to get into some type of career with business management using your degree, but you got to start having more filtered, you have to have a more filtered consciousness. And what I mean by that is, all the things that were holding me down, being angry with my parents or friends or my environment or my experiences, I had to forgive. I had to forgive, most important, myself first for all that I have done, all the things that I had went through, all the things that I had done to other people. And then I had to accept. I had to accept things that I could not change and things that had already taken place. And as I got closer towards graduating, that was a sign itself. That was so eye-opening. I remember after I graduated, I went back to my dorm and I laid down on the bed and I just cried. I'm like, wow, this is what it feels like to accomplish something so major. And now the next chapter of your life is really going to start, in what direction I didn't know, but, to accomplish something so hard that it took me almost 7 years. I dropped out of my junior college and things like that. And so that's how it all unfolded. And it started, within college and leaving college that I had to start working on, accepting and forgiveness. And now in my life, I really keep gratitude. I remain grateful for everything, every person I get to meet, every story I get to hear, every person I get to help and inspire, so I just remain grateful. But that's when it started.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that you can also recapture these big moments of your life and really remember what it was like. Like, you said
Yeah.
you graduated, you went back to your dorm room and like were crying in your bed. I mean, I can't imagine what that must have felt like. Like you said, just like, this is what it feels like to be making this accomplishment. I made it. I followed my own path and
Yeah.
it's worked out and it feels really good. I think that's
Hmm.
one of the biggest things with like this work and like encouraging people to follow their own path versus following the
Right.
herd is that when you can finally trust yourself and your intuition of what's leading you, it's amazing. And there's endless possibilities.
Is that I did not feel like I was receiving, a certain type of love. And I became very, very sad. And then my sadness and that emotion turned into anger. And of course, as I became a preteen, I'm a young, angry individual on the inside. And now my environment, which we call a jungle, uh, is showing me so many different faces. I mean, I'm seeing hustlers. I'm seeing people beat down. I'm seeing, people who are addicted to drugs being beat down. I'm seeing drug dealers fight each other. I'm seeing people shot at. I've been in situations where I've had to get out of way of a drive-by, things like that. Just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And it ultimately led me to, play around with guns and bring young kids into my apartment and put a gun, to their heads to instill some type of fear and gain some type of respect. Now, this is where my psyche used to be. That was the old me, the lost me. I guess I really want to communicate to people that because that's who I used to be, that doesn't mean that's who I am now. but it does take work from the inside first to change your thought process, the way you go about life, the way you interact with your friends, who you allow to be in your circle, to really filter that out to get what you really want. And even if you don't know what you really want, I can assure you what I'm describing as far as my life is not what you want, even if you relate to it. And that's the beauty of life. We all relate no matter what we look like, no matter what our backgrounds consist of. We have someone who's been on drugs, someone who's been indulging in alcohol, someone who's been murdered, died from an illness. That's just how the circle of life, how it works. And so I just want those out there to know that it starts with you on the inside first and then the outside. So you have to become inward focused in order to be fulfilled in yourself and ultimately in your life. And, I'm on that journey now, and I'm grateful that I'm grateful and fortunate that I've been able to turn that inward and just maximize that to the fullest. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And I wouldn't even change my experiences, if I could, because it's made me who I am today.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and well said. It's so true. It's people get so afraid of like, oh, if I take care of myself, it seems selfish or whatever. But
Right.
You're really right. Any change that you want to see in your life, it has to start on the inside.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
turning inward, like you said, turning into that inward focus, figuring out who you are and what you want and what makes you happy and what's going to support you. That's where you can start to make the real change, and then you can kind of go outward with it. I think so many people feel like it's all, oops, just knocked over something. I feel like so many people think it's an external job, right? They rely on others to make them happy or to make them feel fulfilled or whatever, but it's really all internal, like you said. And once you can kind of get control of that internal self, that inward focus, and start making that changes inward, then everything in your outer world, exterior, becomes affected by that. So I really love that you said that. And it's so, like, I think both of us, like, if we can get anything across, one of the main messages today would to be that, like, it's okay to focus on yourself, and it's okay to take time for yourself. And it really does start on the inside first.
For sure. Definitely, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. That was really important.
You're very welcome, yeah.
Okay, well, anything else you want to share or talk about?
No, you can shoot the question.
Okay. So one of the things I kind of thought about when you were talking, and I just want to hear like your input, but why do you think people get, like, there's two questions. I know not so that's in
No
coaching, like
stacking.
the big, no stacking questions, but this is like a stacking question. It's like in my mind, I'm like, one is like, why do you think people get stuck, and why do you think most people want to follow?
So first, why do people get stuck? Well, as a human being, we get comfortable. We really get comfortable, and when we know what's coming our way, we like to control things, right? For our own benefit. This is where selfishness is at its fullest. We want to control everything, and where I come from, people get comfortable because they know what's coming. They know the environment. They know where they live. They know what could happen. And so depending on your experiences, if you've had a lot of unfortunate traumas, it can be very easy to get stuck as well, because that can detach you from yourself. You lose a loved one. You go through an abusive relationship. Those things will detach someone from their inner being. And life goes by and they just don't even realize how stuck they are and who they used to be and what they've allowed and how their boundaries have been pushed over tenfold. And so why people get stuck, I believe, is that they get too comfortable. They get complacent and comfortable. And you have to be the exact opposite.
Yeah. No, I like that. It's true. Like, it's easy to be comfortable, right? Even if the situation is bad, like I've gone through it myself, and I know other people who are kind of in a crappy situation, but it's comfortable.
I've been in it too, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's just like, why are you saying this? Like, it could be so much better. But yeah, people just get comfortable, and it's afraid to kind of step out of that space into the unknown. And see, and then also like how you said too, being detached from yourself, something like, losing a loved one or some traumatic event that affects you, all of a sudden you come detached from yourself and you lose yourself a little bit. And so that maybe staying in the comfortable space allows you to just be comfortable because you're so detached.
Right. Yeah. And of course, and what goes into all that again is fear as well. Fear of the unknown. Again, if we can't control it, then we don't really know what our result may yield. And if we can control it, then we have an influence over the result. And if that result is in our favor, then we're probably more inclined to really going after that and controlling
Yeah.
or doing what we can to maximize, the benefit on our end. But, what do you do when you don't have control, when you have uncertainty, when you're uncomfortable? That's the magical question. And, I would advise anyone, as a coach, we don't advise, but I take off the hat. Um, I would advise anyone to go after being uncomfortable, think things through, try and figure out what will work best. I can guarantee you if your current situation that you're going through is not yielding the results that you want and you're controlling it and you're unhappy, you're stressed, you have poor coping mechanisms with drug use or alcohol use or anything like that. Clearly, if it's not working and it's not yielding a positive, uplifting benefit, then it's time to do something different. It is time to do something different. And even if you don't know what it is, there are many resources out there that can really help you even get close to doing something different. So you can have a little bit of clarity, a little bit of comfort if that's what you're seeking, but you won't have it all. And so one thing I've learned in my life is that the more uncomfortable I've been by taking risks, more things have come my way that have benefited me. And selfishly saying it, being able for me to grow, I've been able to help other people. And I'm a strong, I believe in this strong. You can't take care of other people if you can't take care of yourself. And so you have to take care of yourself first, mentally, physically, everything encompassed. And so you've heard it, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. It has to be a rational decision. You may not know all the pieces, but again, if your current situation is not working out and what you're currently doing isn't yielding a beneficial result for you or your family, then you have no choice but to do something different. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, and that's when that fear comes in. And they ask questions. Oh, well, what if this happened? And you play the what if game. No what if games. We're not going to play what if games because we can go forever with what if. But you have to be willing to take calculated risks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I lit up when you said the more uncomfortable your life has been, and like the more that you leaned into the uncomfortable space, the more things have opened up in your life.
Sure.
And I just lit up with that because I'm in that space right now. Nothing makes sense, and I'm just I'm so uncomfortable all the time, and I'm just kind of going with the flow, and there is no plan. And like the more I do that, the more I lean into it, the more things are just like in flow, and it's coming into my life. And it's one of those things I'm like, if I would have known like how wonderful my life is now, being in this uncomfortable space and just letting down my guard and trying to control everything, I would have made changes so long ago. And so I love to hear that you're having the same experience. The more uncomfortable you are, the more life just flows. And I think we get attached to trying to control how something should be, and the more we get attached, the more we try to control and like force something. It's like we're going upstream, right, rather than just going downstream with everything flowing. So
for sure.
But like you said, it kind of ties into everything we're talking about. It's like that's an internal like job. It's to get comfortable in that space, to figure out who you are, what you want, and being comfortable, like know your self-worth, and learning to trust what your inner voice is telling you and going with it without worrying out how things are going to come out.
Right,
so.
Exactly, yeah. No, good for you. Good for you to take that risk. Excited to hear more about, what you're doing in your own coaching world as well. So good.
Yes. We'll have to have a good conversation. Okay, so let's see. I'm just reviewing my questions really quick of what else I had to ask you. I think you asked a lot, or you answered a lot as you were kind of talking. So now, okay, well, I kind of wanted to talk about this because we both really enjoyed this book. I was going to ask you, like, are there any specific books or people that you follow that have kind of helped you along your journey today and, like, in the past? Is there any specific book? I know you and I really like the book called The Go-Giver by Bob Berg. Yeah, that one's really good. When I saw when you posted that, I was like, oh, my God, I just read that book. It's amazing. So I was really excited to hear you say that you liked it, too.
Yeah, I take any entity, any video, any article that's speaking the language of, self-empowerment, self-actualization, really personal growth, I gravitate towards. I know from a sports world, Tony Dungy has a great book, The Uncommon. I've been reading that. That's been a very, very, very powerful book. The Go-Giver, as you've mentioned. One that I like is called Relentless. That's another book about mental toughness, and the guy who wrote that was Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Charles Barkley, all those guys. Excuse me, Charles Barkley, all those guys. He was their personal trainer, and is very reputable in the personal training world. And that's called Relentless by Tim Grover. I'm trying to think of some other ones that I've read. For our new fathers, just to switch it up, Strong Father, Strong Daughter, by Meg Meeker. That's a very powerful book for any father out there who, has a daughter. I don't care how old she is. I have an 8-month-old now, and she's been amazing. But it's given a lot of perspective and psychology to my impact in her life, as a father. So I would recommend that. Trying to think of some other books. I've read many books, and I'm not a big reader by far, but I'm actually getting into the reading world. It's been very beneficial for me to attain that knowledge.
I find it always helpful, as you're kind of on this journey of like getting connected with yourself and going inward focusing, and it is inspiring to have other books. And actually kind of going back to our conversation before, we wanted to talk a little bit about boundaries. So kind of changing the subject from books back to our conversation. Hope everyone's following me. Just follow along here. I want to talk about, we talked about boundaries and, why do people lose their boundaries or why do they get broken? And I started to think about, maybe why is it so hard for people to turn inward and focus on themselves? And maybe that's a boundary that people, let get broken all the time or something like that. What are your thoughts around boundaries and how people should maintain them?
Boundaries, there's other, words you can use, morals, beliefs, things like that. I think people allow their boundaries to be broken or get broken through because of self-worth and self-esteem issues, not really believing in what they believe in. Some people have beliefs solely based on what their parents said they should believe, and they probably don't really believe that themselves, but they carry it on because the fear of disappointing, their parents or whoever it came from. And that's where I would advise that person to take a deep look at yourself. What is it that you like, and what is it that you don't like? How do you want to be treated in your life? How do you not want to be treated in your life? And that goes tenfold with how you treat other people. For me personally, I am a respect guy. So at a young age where I would put a shotgun to a kid's head and try to obtain respect that way, which, I wouldn't recommend at all, very senseless, I now give respect. That's kind of that go-giver mentality. I give in order to receive. And so I give respect, through mannerisms, through good posture, through compliments, things like that. But people allow their boundaries to really be broken because they don't really have a strong sense of self-worth, and they don't fully believe in what it is that they say they do. A lot of times we say things that we really just don't mean. And so you got to stay true to it. But first off, you got to believe in it. I really believe in respect, and I don't want to be disrespected, so I won't go out and just blatantly disrespect people no matter where I'm at. Because that's something that I really believe in as far as, respect for myself and for others. But if you don't really believe in what your morals or your values are, or your boundaries, then you're not going to abide by them yourself. And guess what? People are going to treat you as much as you allow yourself to be treated. And so, you have stories where, because you love a person, you allow them to do this. But I can tell you, people who truly care about you, who really love you, would not want to break your boundaries or disrespect you or go against your morals or your values in the first place. If anything, they'll support you and actually help them be established even more and help you grow. And so from that standpoint, you see a lot of boundaries and relationships get broken because of, love. Love is a powerful thing, but it's powerful for each individual and how they interpret love in their life. And
Yeah.
some people will risk it all for love, but at the same time, they're not happy. They're not content with who they are and who they've become, and so then they become detached. And we can have a domino effect and go on and on about this.
Right.
And, but
Yeah.
yeah.
No, well said. And I like how you tied in the belief part to it, because you're exactly right. It's like what you believe about something, it becomes true. So if you don't really believe that your self-worth or you have these boundaries or whatever, then that's what's going to happen. And that's how other people are going to treat you. So again, it's that inward job, turning
Right.
inward.
Yeah.
What is it you believe about yourself and that what you deserve, and just really getting connected to that space. So I really like that you said that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Love that. Well, cool. Well, this has been so much fun. I could just talk to you for hours about all of this stuff. Is there anything else specific you want to say before we kind of end the call today or our session today? Not session, maybe recording it. It's like a coach, automatic coach
You're
response.
coaching me, huh? Yeah,
I'm in a coach mode.
Coach, I see how this works. No, if anything, if anyone has been affected, in a positive way, or have seen this interview be helpful, I have a Facebook page. You can follow me on Facebook. My name is Kevin Coates, Coates. I don't have a Twitter, don't have an Instagram, I guess not yet. Working with some people on the marketing side. Honestly, I'm not a big social media fan, and we can have a whole nother segment about social media
Yes.
and how it distorts people's mindsets. But it is very beneficial, especially for those like you and I who really want to help and inspire and help people, from a genuine heart. And I do have a website, gratefulsoul.biz, and that is gratefulsoul.biz. And I have articles on there that I've written and shared, and you can get to know me even further. And so check that out. I do have a web page on Facebook, Grateful Soul as well. And I really wanted to model, who I am and how I go about my life. And so for those who really, want to get to know me, and, if they just want to get some advice or some clarity or whatever it may be, you can contact me anytime, or, holler at my girl, Teresa.
Yeah, hit us up. Well, and also I forgot to mention, and I don't know if you feel like you want to talk about this, but you're also in the process of writing a book about your journey and all the things that you're learning. So everyone watch out for that. That's going to be a really inspirational piece, and I'm just really excited for you.
Yeah.
Do you have a title for the book?
Yeah, so the title of the book is going to be called Surviving the Jungle. And where that came from is where I grew up, and a lot of people pretty confident that anyone who grew up where I grew up, it's like a jungle. Honestly, you either eat or you get eaten, and what I mean by that is you either survive or you die. And how survival looks for you is pretty much making sure you got food and water in the house, your lights are on, and you're able to support your family. And how people obtain, the resources to survive are monumental. From all angles, as I've mentioned, robbing, stealing, working 3 or 4 jobs. They're genuinely great people who really make an honest living. Not everyone in my environment, are out to take or do things in a not so deserving way. But that's where the title came from, Surviving the Jungle. And what it'll be about is I'm kind of going back and forth on it, but I think it'll be kind of like a short story of a character, kind of modeling my life. And what I really wanted to do for my viewers and my audience is to take them on a journey of a lost young man who, really in the ideal world didn't have all the cards. I didn't have everything handed to me. I didn't have a lot of clarity. My parents did not go to college. They worked hard, and they were not perfect. And yes, they indulged in alcohol and different coping mechanisms. And I love them dearly, and we have a very strong relationship now. And close relatives and family who've gone through, unfortunate things that are still trying to make it work. And I'm not perfect, and I've seen it and been through it. So I want to take my audience through this journey where you see this lost young man who end up becoming a very very strong inspiration to society, and very loving and caring father, and significant other. And what was once haunting me and keeping me down and keeping me stressed out and really hurting me, I had to change the way I thought. And that's the most important thing, is that if you want a different result, if you want something to be different, you have to change the way you think. That's the most important thing. It is a mental thing first. You can move. I moved to Colorado, and I can tell you, the only thing that allowed me to embrace Colorado and enjoy the great people I've met, including yourself and good friends, is the way I think and the way I, think about myself and the way I've thought in the past. I had to change the way I think and the way I thought. And so that's probably the number one thing, is that you have to change and go against whatever it is you always believed in or somebody else believed in. Look inward and change the way you think for the benefit of you and your family or everybody in your circle. And so that's pretty much what the book, what it'll entail.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I'm just like lighting up because I feel so passionate about this work and sharing this with people. So I'm, again, so honored and grateful that you took time today to share your story. And I love that we share the same mindset. Then I hope that we can just kind of keep spreading it. And my wish for people listening to this, please share with your friends and family. Our goal is just we want to help inspire people to be able to do this.
Just want to help. I just want to help. I can't say nothing else after that.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. We just want to help. We just want to, inspire you to see, what you can do with your life by just, changing the way you think. So,
for sure.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. This has been amazing.
No, thank you. I appreciate the time, Teresa, and very honored, and I appreciate you and everything you're doing. And, I'm very grateful that I've met you a year ago in IPEC. So.
Me too. Likewise. I'm so grateful.
For sure.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks.
All right.